Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about week one of NFL free agency in the books. We have spring training already going on for MLB, the Bulls in a slump, and the Blackhawks hopefully selling everything that's not nailed down. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, this has been a kind of crazy week. How have you been holding up with all of this?
Yeah, it definitely has been a crazy week in all sports, really. I mean, you can pretty much point to every single sport that's going on right now. Big news, big news, big news, big news. Some expected, some not expected, some really not expected.
And you know, we don't really talk college sports here, but I thought it was hilarious is ESPN posted a thing that, you know, you can do March Madness brackets on ESPN.com. And they said of all of the brackets that were done on ESPN's website, after the first 6 games of the NCAA tournament, only 3.1% of brackets were left that were perfect.
Yeah, it was a crazy small number. I mean, right away. And
yeah,
you know,
and then after Kentucky lost, I think there were none left.
Yeah, well, I saw the Illini win a game they shouldn't win on Friday night, and then deservingly so, they lost today. Not really surprised. Unfortunately, you know, you shouldn't feel as down on a 4 seed typically, but you know, unfortunately, the Illini, with all the talent they have, they just had so many issues all year, scoring droughts, not rebounding well, and you saw that all just bite them in the ass in the game against Houston. And I mean, it's not like it was a big like upset. It was 4v5. And I'm pretty sure Houston was favored by many, despite the fact that they were the lower seed technically. But yeah, you know, it didn't really surprise me. What surprised me more than anything is the fact that they were able to pull that first win out of their ass, because the Illini didn't have a lead until like the final minutes of the game, and then they just completely pulled it out miracle. So I sit here saying, well, the Illini weren't one and done. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game today. It was my daughter's friend's birthday, and we went bowling at that Kings in Rosemont. And so we were bowling, and the TV right above the lane was the Illini game. So I got to watch that while we bowled, and you know, there was no reason for them not to be in it. They just played sloppy.
Yeah, just really. I mean, poor passing too, and just blech. But hey, 2 years in a row, they were not one and done. Look at it that way.
I mean, you know, my DePaul Blue Demons were not in it again. So
now that Illinois is out and Loyola's out, and you know, obviously DePaul wasn't in it, Northwestern wasn't in it. You know, the region is pretty much done here, and I think most people are just waiting to see how far the Peacocks go, the St. Peter Peacocks.
Yeah, I mean, we still have Notre Dame in it.
Yeah,
I you know, they're still sort of regional.
Yeah, you could consider them regional. I'll tell you what, though, the Big Ten just bleh, as a whole.
Yeah, I mean that's what they do. I mean that's really what they do. At least it's funny because usually as a whole they fall flat in the tournament. Even going into it, they'll be pretty hyped about it. But there's usually like one team from the Big Ten that will do well. It's not looking like it's going to be Wisconsin.
Nope.
It definitely wasn't Ohio State or Illinois.
Nope. Wasn't IU.
Yeah. Maybe Michigan.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean,
they got a tough road ahead of them against Villanova.
They did. And I mean, they squeaked in like by the skin of their teeth to get into the tournament.
Yeah. And then they're playing well in the tournament. So,
and, this is all after, the Juwan Howard stuff. It's not like Michigan, everything just went smoothly at the end of the season. There were a lot of bumps in the road.
No. And you know what? I don't know if this redeems Juwan Howard, but I don't know if you saw the photo after the Tennessee game where he was consoling a Tennessee player.
I did.
I don't know if that redeems punching somebody on the sideline, but it shows that things are more complicated than Juwan Howard's a jerk and whatever,
it's like the line from Superbad. Cat got out of the bag, man.
So I'm going to be, Michigan is my team in college football. I'm not as invested in them in college basketball. I'll be rooting for some of the underdogs.
I don't really care who wins at this point. I just want to see some good games,
I mean, like it would be nice to see. I know that over the last few years, Gonzaga is not really an underdog, but they're still, I don't know, they're always going to be kind of an underdog in my eyes, but be nice to see a Providence do well. I don't know. I'm just going to root for some of the underdog teams. I don't want to see the same old teams make it every year.
Yeah.
But it's so many upsets. It's been a blast. I mean, my bracket is totally destroyed.
I mean, that's the thing. We're stepping into the darkness together when it comes to brackets. All our brackets are screwed.
I'm in a pool with like 150 people and I'm like 132nd. It's brutal.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm a patterns guy. Like I don't watch a ton of college basketball during the season. So when I go in, I just kind of look at patterns. Like there's always a 12 beating a 5 every year. It's kind of out of the 4 guessing which one it's going to be. I usually pick the 9 over the 8. And you go from there. And this year it's just the upsets and guessing wrong in the patterns. Like 12 did beat a 5, but I guessed the wrong 12.
I picture you with like one of those golf visors on and one of those like thin brimmed like glasses, like just calculating something like on one of those old time calculators that has like the paper wheel on it, and you're doing all this stuff. And then here's
hand crank on it, I yank it down.
And then here's the guy next to you just looking at each matchup and just like, I'll go with this one. I like their name. I'll flip a coin. Heads, okay. This guy. But that's the thing, you think about a lot of the winning predictions, whether it's a bracket, whether it's maybe like NFL football pick'ems. Sometimes it's just random. Sometimes people who just lucky guess are the ones who are right. The ones that don't do the research, the ones that don't know the teams, the ones that don't know the rosters, the money lines, whatever. It's just the ones that just say, okay, I'll go with that one. Sure. Oh, they won. Cool. I was right. I mean, at the end of the day, there's 2 teams and one is going to win.
There was a when I was in college, there was a girl who she won the pool we were in, and she's like, oh, I've never seen a college basketball game in my life. And I was like, how'd you pick teams? And she went, I don't know. Sometimes I would just see which team had cuter boys or which team I had liked the uniforms better. And she just went through. She's like, I would Google the uniforms and whichever team had the nicer uniforms or which one had the cuter boys on the team or which I liked their mascot better.
Yeah, that's a popular one. People will like to pick the mascot. Oh, I like Wolverines. That's cool. Oh, look, peacocks. That's awesome. Let's go with that. Ooh, badgers. Let's go with badgers. They'll do stuff like that. But hey, sometimes those are the ones that are right.
I know, right? It's just as good as if not better than anything I do. So, but I mean, I guess if you ask me who I'm actively rooting for, and I'd say St. Pete's. Just
I gotta go St. Pete's too.
I mean, everybody loves an underdog story, and there's no way they're winning, but it sure would be cool.
And I mean, remember a few years ago when it was Loyola, and that was a big deal here because it's the local team.
Yeah.
But, as I was rooting for them, don't get me wrong, but, Loyola is a well-known program, right? People know Loyola. I didn't know who the hell St. Peter's was.
I don't even know where it is.
I had no clue.
I could not even tell you what state it's in.
No, I have no idea. It could be anywhere.
So like, I guess if you're making me rank, I'm going to go St. Pete's is my go-to at this point. And then I don't know, I guess Michigan. And then from there, who else is left in the Big Ten? Purdue. Then I would guess Purdue just because they're Big Ten. And then after that, I'm just actively rooting against people. So I don't want UCLA or North Carolina or Kansas,
Duke.
I don't want any of those teams to win. They always win. I don't want any of those teams to win. So then after that, I'm just rooting.
For your reference, really quick, New Jersey.
Huh.
Yeah, New Jersey.
I lived in Philadelphia, which is like butts right up to New Jersey for 9 years. And I never heard of St. Peter's.
Yeah, well, there they are. And I mean, they beat Murray State by 10.
It's a good Murray State team too.
31-3. And I get it, strength of schedule means a lot. They were the 7 seed, so it's not like they were a 1 seed, but still, I mean, on paper, the matchup has got to heavily favor Murray State in that scenario.
Yeah, they proved it was not a fluke.
No, it's pretty remarkable. Yeah, so, I mean, you look at the box score from yesterday, and, St. Pete, they didn't really need a big comeback. They were up at halftime, and then they just put them away, one by 10. I didn't see how the full game played out, so it probably was a bit more back and forth than that. So, but still, it's not like they were down like 10 at the half. They had that lead going into the halftime, so they were playing what seemed like a pretty competitive game throughout, just based on the box score.
Yeah, so St. Pete is going to be, I think 95% of basketball fans at this point are at some level rooting for them.
Yeah, I think so too. How old is St. Peter? St. Peter's has been around since 1872.
Still never heard of it.
30-acre campus. Wow. That's something.
I'm guessing it must be in North Jersey, somewhere near New York.
Let's see. Campus, 30 acres. Private Jesuit University in Jersey City.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
New Jersey.
That butts right up to New York. Huh.
Yeah.
I've been to Jersey City. I had no idea.
Joyzy.
The things you learn.
The college granted an honorary Doctor of Divinity degree to Martin Luther King in 1965. Let's see, notable alumni: Bob Mendez, Senator, New Jersey; Joseph Patrick Tumulty, White House Chief of Staff; Daniel J. Griffin, U.S. Representative; and Albio Sires, I don't know who that is, U.S. Representative, New Jersey's 13th Congressional District. So there, you learn something new every day.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
But I mean, March Madness aside, we had the after the MLB lockout ended, we had the Major League Baseball signings, which happened a lot slower than I was expecting. I was expecting within a day or two, like everybody being signed. So I guess I was wrong that there probably wasn't contact between agents and GMs during the lockout in secret, because some of those deals took a while to come through.
I still think there was, not everybody, maybe not a majority, but I still think there was. I think that free agents were expecting something different, especially with Carlos Correa, because it sounded like he wanted a long-term deal, but GMs they couldn't make any promises because they didn't know what the rules were going to be. So it was hard to lay out a structure for anything, when there's no CBA, because you don't know what the stipulations of the CBA are going to be exactly. I still do think, though, that agents were talking to teams, engaging interest at least.
That might be true, but I was assuming that they were getting framework in place, and because these deals did take a while to come through, but as expected, football, NFL had the legal tampering period. So essentially, there was a 2.5, 3-day period where teams and players could come to an agreement, but it was not official until the league year started on the 16th of March. But you could come to an agreement with players, and typically it's just a formality. You're like, okay, they've agreed in principle to this with this team, this contract, and then when the league year starts, it's official. But we had a situation here with the Bears where it did not go that way. The Bears' big free agent signing was Larry Ogunjobi, and he failed his physical.
A lot of people are upset by that, and it's a bummer. It is an absolute bummer, because I was excited about that signing. I was excited about what he could bring to the Bears. But the fact that Ryan Poles came out and said, we can't do this, that's the right move. You don't want to commit that money to damaged goods. We've seen that happen before. Remember Pernell McPhee?
Absolutely. And listen, there was a key phrase in the statement that Ryan Poles made: we can't sign this contract today. I would not be opposed to signing a lesser money guaranteed deal with Larry Ogunjobi. Mm-hmm. That's more incentive based, mm-hmm. where you say to him, hey, listen, we really did believe in you. We really wanted this to happen. We just can't guarantee this money, because if you're not healthy, this really is bad for us. Where we make this incentive based, and if you are healthy, you should be able to meet these incentives and get paid. And I would not be opposed to that, because then if he's not healthy, you can cut ties with minimal financial ramifications. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. I didn't even think about it that way. But yeah, I mean, some people have been trying to say this is a bad look on Ryan Poles. It's not a bad look at all. It's the opposite. It's It's, hey, here's a team saying, you know what? We can't go down this road if there's going to be potential issues. The Bears would do that before, but not now. You're not committing any money by agreeing to sign him. If he doesn't put that ink on the paper, then you're not committing any money to him.
Yeah, and everything was contingent on passing a physical, and he didn't.
Right.
You know? So
and you do that before you sign the contract. There is a reason for that.
And, you can't do. So here's the things. And it's the frustrating part is I get it where fans are upset or whatever. But when you have actual people that are paid money as their job reporting on the Bears that are saying it, that's it's bogus to me, because they should know better. Like you don't get to do your medicals until the league year starts. So you're just agreeing in principle. So you would say, hey, are you healthy? Yeah, I'm healthy. Okay. Then when you do your medicals, then you go, oh, hey, not healthy. You do your due diligence. Then everything is stipulated, pending passing a physical. It's Ryan Poles. I mean, this screwed the Bears a little bit, because they found their guy, they got their guy, and then several days went by, and then suddenly, oops, can't be our guy because of injury. Mm-hmm. And the well has run dry on defensive tackles in free agency.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that this happened. And, this isn't me saying, oh, everything's fine, everything's great. I don't think you could hold this in any way against Ryan Poles. You're not given a full slate of up-to-date medicals when you're committing to sign a guy. If that were the case, you wouldn't be doing physicals like you normally would. That's why you do the physicals. Ryan Poles doesn't want to commit money to a faulty part. It's just as simple as that. And look, you also can't look at this situation and say this completely derails the offseason. Let's be real about this offseason. We are getting ready for what's going to be a bridge season. 2022 is going to be a bridge for this team. This is necessary because Ryan Poles has to clear out the old and make space for the new. And we know that the cap is going to really open up after this next season because of the Khalil Mack dead money, and I'm sure there'll be other moves along the way. But this is going to be a transition year. And what's unfortunate is that Justin Fields is going to have to play another year of his rookie contract, but at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do for Ryan Poles. And if you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at Ryan Pace, because this is a result of everything that's happened over the past 4 years. Ryan Poles inherited a situation where he had to do this. You weren't going to patchwork and turn them into a contender. You weren't going to just fix a few holes and everything would be fine. It was too many holes on an aging roster. You have to start from scratch around Justin Fields. You don't want to like to see it, but that's the best move you can make at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can, with the NFL, overextend yourself financially to make your window last longer. Absolutely. But the problem is that to be the best built team and to last the longest, you need to build through the draft and supplement with free agency. And the Bears went in with some cap problems, with having very few draft picks, and
bingo,
and a roster that was extremely devoid of talent and depth. So there was just a lot of issues. So could Ryan Poles have gone in and signed a bunch of free agents, kicked money down the road, and to that eat up that cap for next year and try to make them a low-end playoff team? Sure. But is that the long-term best solution to making the Bears a competitive team long term. No, not at all. I mean, you get the cap under control and you build up your draft picks and then you go from there. And that's really what he's doing.
And here's I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say is all of the free agents he signed were 28 years old and younger.
This is something I want to mention too. We all know Justin Fields is the centerpiece. We all get that. But there have been other pieces that have come to this team recently. A Tevin Jenkins, through the draft, just as one example. And this isn't me poo-pooing Tevin Jenkins or saying he's not going to be good, but could we talk about the possibility that Ryan Poles might not like Tevin Jenkins? Or he might not like some of these recent guys that Ryan Pace got in the draft? He might say, you know what? He doesn't fit my mold. And you know what? At this point, I think you got to let Ryan Poles build what he likes. You shouldn't have to hold back just because Ryan Pace got him recently. And I'm not saying Ryan Poles doesn't like Tevin Jenkins. He might as well could. I'm just giving you an example that it's not just aging veterans that Ryan Poles might be looking to move on from. It could be some so-called younger pieces too that he might just not like for his philosophy.
I mean, the thing with Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum, do we know enough about them? Does he know enough about them to not like them? I know there's been a lot of, Bears Twitter has been pretty mixed on, well, Ryan Poles obviously hates all the Bears offensive linemen and wants to rebuild this. Well, we don't know. And his actions aren't saying anything other than that it was clear that we needed an upgraded center, which he did. And we don't know. I mean, he hasn't signed any other offensive line free agent. We don't know what he's going to do in the draft. Maybe he likes Tevin Jenkins. Maybe he doesn't.
Maybe he does.
Maybe he's not sure because he hasn't seen enough, or he hasn't seen it enough with a competent offensive system. Because, it is awful hard to judge a player based on being in a bad system. So, what does he think of Larry Borum? What does he think of Cody Whitehair? I don't think Cody Whitehair. I think this. And who knows if Cody Whitehair is even on the roster come opening weekend. The guy makes a lot of money. I think this is probably his last year as a Bear.
I think so too. Yeah.
But you who are you going to get to replace him right now? The market for free agents is a little bit bare. I mean, we've seen that first wave, and there's going to be more players, but the top end players are off the market for the most part. I know Bears Twitter is anxious to sign Teron Armstead, but that guy wants like $20 to $25 million a year, and he's never played a full season, and he's over 30 years old. Does not fit, what Ryan Poles has said he wants to bring in and what he's trying to do with this team. So,
yeah, exactly. And, the other thing too is when you look at the Bears roster as it is, and you can obviously look at all the holes. I mean, they're pretty glaring. Is that you look at the way he's filled out some of the spots already. It's a lot of small prove it deals and maybe getting some underrated value. So, you look at some of the receivers that he got. Nobody's saying, oh, they're a number 1 or number 2 or even number 3. You're looking at 4 and 5 receivers that they've mostly gotten so far. And, those are the types of guys where when you fill out that depth, you can get some, I'd say, underrated value there. And that's kind of the point of what we're going to be doing going forward with a lot of this depth.
I mean, the way it is right now, without the draft, without any more free agent signings, your wide receiver core is Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, Equanimous St. Brown, Nasimba Webster, Daz Newsome, and Isaiah Coulter. So I'm assuming you're probably going to use one of your 2 second-round picks on a wide receiver.
Absolutely. You have to.
And I mean, who's left in free agency that might be interesting? Bears are not going to Antonio Brown. I would be shocked if they went Julio Jones.
No.
Jarvis Landry sounds like he's going to go back to Cleveland. You're not going to sign Odell Beckham Jr. because he's a pain in the ass and he's got a torn ACL. So who knows when he'll be back. And then I guess probably your next bets are Will Fuller, who's injury prone, and Jamison Crowder. So I'm assuming that Byron Pringle and Equanimous St. Brown are going to be your numbers 3 and 4 wide receivers on this team.
Probably. And I'm not saying that's exciting or it's Super Bowl worthy. Not saying that at all.
Nope.
But this is part of that bridge process. I mean, think of 2022 like a bridge quarterback. You as a whole, you're looking for a team that brings out some of the best in your future guys, a la Fields and Mooney, but isn't necessarily going to be the long-term solution. The team you see on the field this year for the Bears, a lot of that is not going to be there in 2023 and beyond. 2023 and beyond is when you're going to be more aggressive, both in the draft and in free agencies. 2023, you want to sign some bigger deals? Sign some bigger deals. You want to draft more by using your assets, by targeting certain areas or taking the best player available or even using that as trade bait? Okay, that's not going to happen this year. You're not landing big fish. You're not going to be making any trades unless you're getting assets back. The trades you're going to make are going to be selling more guys off potentially. Are they going to sell a Robert Quinn? We'll see. But you're not going to be using draft picks to trade for a player.
Right. And, but the Bears have been pretty quiet as far as the free agency signing. And I guess that's to be expected because Ryan Poles literally told us that he's not big into this big splash free agency signings. He's more of a second and third wave kind of guy because you get better value. The Larry Ogunjobi was the big splash one, the free agency signing, but that got nixed. Maybe he's back on a prove it deal or incentive laden deal, but that's yet to be seen. But his free agent signings were he signed the replacement for Ogunjobi in Justin Jones. He signed Darrington Evans, the running back. Kari Blasingame signed a fullback. Bears now have a fullback.
That. We got a fullback again. Well, that right there, screw everything I said. We're winning a Super Bowl now.
He signed Lucas Patrick, who has played guard and center. And I like that move because it gives you flexibility that, I mean, first and foremost, it means Sam Mustapher is not going to be the starting center, but it allows you to, there's not a lot of established centers still left available, but JC Treader, who has the Browns parted ways with, is a really good center. And I think you could sign him and then move, you can move Lucas Patrick over to the other guard spot and still be in perfectly fine shape. And, you'd have your guards in Cody Whitehair and Lucas Patrick. And if a JC Treader gets injured, you don't have to rely on Sam Mustapher. You can move Whitehair or Lucas Patrick over to center and then patch up that guard spot. And then he signed Byron Pringle and Equanimous St. Brown as free agents. So really, short-term, low money deals.
I like the Byron Pringle move because he's a speedy guy and that gives you your potential return man.
I like him. He's a really precise route runner. He comes back to the ball. He's a higher upside guy. I like that move as well. The Lucas Patrick one is great. You're signing a guy away from the Packers, and the things he's saying are just fantastic. I don't know if you've read any of his quotes.
No, I haven't.
He said the two quotes that were really cool were, I went from one of the most storied franchises in the NFL to the most storied franchise team in the NFL. And I've played my career on the winning side of this rivalry. And I plan to continue playing on the winning side of this rivalry.
Ooh.
So I like that. He's basically saying, we're turning this around, and the Bears are going to be the dominant force in this rivalry, and I like that. Can
we talk about a division rival? Because I think it's pretty relevant.
Absolutely.
So let me tell you what happened when that all went down. I was on a walk. I was on my nightly walk. Beautiful, beautiful evening. It's great now because you could be walking at 7 o'clock and there's still light out. Great feeling, right? So there I am walking on the path, just enjoying my life. And then I'm like, I'll check Twitter. So I take my phone out, and as soon as I open it, tweeted that very second, Packers are trading Davante Adams to the Las Vegas Raiders. And at first I saw that and I blinked. I'm like, that's got to be a fake Schefter, right? So I saw if the check mark was just like a cloud emoji or a circle emoji. I'm like, wait a minute. That's a check mark. That's Adam Schefter. This is legit. And then all of a sudden Twitter just blew up. You want to talk about one of the big moves of the offseason in the NFL, and there have been tons of them. It's this one. Because, just going away from the Packers for a second, Davante Adams and Derek Carr, I think that's going to be a nice combination. Look at that division.
That whole division.
Oh, man.
Between the offensive juggernauts, the quarter, when Derek Carr is the worst quarterback in the division, and you've got a bunch of great pass rushers in the division. You've got a bunch of great quarterbacks and wide receivers in that division. That's going to be fun. And I'm excited to see how that plays out, because, somebody can't make the playoffs.
Right. Because even when you look at the Chargers, they just got Khalil Mack from us. And I think Justin Herbert is a dude. He's got some defense, because how many times has Justin Herbert balled out and then their defense just completely craps the bed? Khalil Mack and Nick Bosa with each other, that is really going to be something to watch. This is going to be fun. And now the three members of that division are like, yeah, we're high powered, but man, we're going to have to defend Davante Adams now. Have fun with that. That is going to be so fun to watch. And, it sounds like, he wanted to go to the Raiders.
Yeah. Because the Packers are saying that his contract was for less money with the Raiders than what the Packers were offering him.
Right.
But the Broncos were a good team that everyone was like, they're just a quarterback away. They got their quarterback. The Chargers were a team that, like, the offense is cooking, can't get the defense going, and they've added some stout defenders. The Raiders were a pretty solid team, but now you add an elite wide receiver to the roster, and the Chiefs are good. And they added Juju Smith-Schuster to their wide receiver core. So it's going to be, that division is going to be brutal.
It is going to be fun.
And then you look at the AFC South, and that's just, anybody could win that division.
Sure.
The Texans are terrible. The Colts don't have a quarterback.
Still wondering what they're going to do.
Have no idea.
Wondering.
No idea. I mean, if
trade for Jimmy G.
If they need a Nick Foles,
ring ring. We'll ship him to them. We'll ship him to them on a Colt.
But I mean, going back to the Bears, though, it's I'm looking at the best available free agents, and we're sort of running out of guys. And the Bears still have a lot of holes to fill. I mean, the defensive line, could they add more talent? Absolutely. Do they have enough to fill out a roster? Yes. Defensive ends, I think they're going to be okay there. Unless they decide to trade Robert Quinn. Cornerbacks, I don't like the talent of our cornerbacks, but we at least have a full roster of cornerbacks now. We've got Jalen Johnson, Thomas Graham, Kendall Vildor, Duke Shelley, Lamar Jackson. Safeties, we only have 2 safeties under contract. So we need 2 more safeties.
Yep.
Linebackers, probably going to carry 6 linebackers, and we've got 4 under contract. So I would expect them to pick up some more linebackers in free agencies. We got Roquan Smith, Nicholas Morrow, Caleb Johnson, and Noah Dawkins.
It's going to be a very different looking linebacker core next year outside Roquan.
It really will. Wide receivers, could we improve the quality? Absolutely. But at least we have enough bodies on the signed to contracts.
And the knowledge knowing that it's going to be addressed in the draft. There's zero doubt about that.
Yes. Running back, I think by signing a fullback, 3 running backs and a fullback, that's probably what their roster is going to be. We have our kicker and our holder now. I don't know if Ryan Winslow is going to be our punter this coming year, but at least we have a punter. We'll probably have I'm imagining they will bring in an undrafted rookie to compete.
Draft that one dude.
Oh, I know, the guy from San Diego State or whatever.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That guy's unreal.
That guy really is unreal.
I think somebody's probably going to draft him in the 4th round or so, 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah.
And the Bears do not have the draft capital to waste on
no.
I'm not saying it's wasteful to draft on a punter, but they have so many holes. I don't think they can afford to put spend that draft pick on a punter.
But now we have to watch him punt on the Packers. Boy, the pain that's going to be.
We don't have a full roster of tight ends. We have Cole Kmet and Jesper Horsted. We don't have a full roster of offensive linemen. I mean, I'm imagining they'll probably carry 4 tackles, 4 guards, and 2 centers. So you've got Lucas Patrick and Sam Mustafa under contract. But guards, you have Cody Whitehair, Willie Wright, and Dieter Iselin. And tackles, Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borum, Tyrone Wheatley, and Lachavius Simmons. So there's a lot of holes where the Bears just need bodies to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you need to fill out a roster somehow, and then you kind of work around that. So it's like, okay, you need to know you at least have guys. Now you bring in the top competition.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the one thing I did like about Ryan Pace is he always shored up he always made sure that they had a full roster going into the draft. So you weren't forced to draft a certain position, but the players that he signed didn't necessarily work out, but I liked the strategy. But
You said you liked something about Ryan Pace, so now the mob is going to come after you.
I know. I really have to clarify because, people don't like nuance. Like, you said you like Ryan Pace. That guy sucked. Like, no, I said I liked the strategy he was trying to use, but he didn't use it well. You said you love Ryan Pace. You want to kiss his face.
What could that be? Opens the door. There's just a massive mob of Bears fans with torches. There he is. There's that Sean Hoopman guy. Let's get him.
So it's, there's a lot of work still have to do in this team. The one thing that's going to be cool, though, is I've always been a fan of seeing undrafted rookies get the opportunity and succeed. And I think this season, the Bears are going to have a lot of opportunity for undrafted rookies to not only make the roster, but actually compete for playing time.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's actually kind of cool because I don't think they're going to sign a ton of free agents. And if they do, it's going to be at this point, probably 1-year deal guys to fill out the roster. And if you got a guy on a 1-year deal making 1 year $5 million or something, and you have an undrafted rookie that comes in and outplays them in practice and training camp and preseason, then why in the heck wouldn't you pay the guy, $800,000 or $500,000 or whatever it is to pay him instead of $5 million?
Yeah, it's huge difference.
It's a huge difference, and a younger player, give him the chance. So it's going to be exciting to see how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. Counting down the days to the draft, though, man, like I can't wait. It's what, a little over a month away. I think it's my birthday weekend, actually.
It's a little over a month. It's the last weekend of April.
Yeah, that's my birthday weekend. So I'm hoping that my birthday contains some good, fun Bears draft picks, or at least ones that I'm not angry about.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the draft philosophy of this new regime is going to be. And, the one bummer is that with the Packers trading away Davante Adams, it pretty much guarantees that they are going to be taking a first round wide receiver, which means that there's going to be less wide receivers available for the Bears. And my fear is that you're like, okay, well, the Bears are kind of painting themselves in a corner where they have to sign or draft a wide receiver with one of their 2 first picks. And if there's nobody available, them reaching.
The nice thing is that it's a pretty deep wide receiver class. So I think even if you're not getting exactly who you get, you could still get a pretty talented, useful wide receiver in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when the Bears pick at 39, at this point, there probably will be one of the really good batch. I still think there's a lot of wide receivers that have potential, but I just don't want to reach at one. So either Dotson from Penn State or Sky Moore out of, I think, Western Michigan, or Pickens from Georgia. I think one of those 3 guys will when the Bears draft at 39. And I think those guys would worthy picks at 39, probably even a little bit of a steal. So that's my hope.
Yeah, I mean, Davante Adams is gone from Green Bay, but they're going to draft his replacement, and they're going to be just fine. That's how I see it. I know you will never be able to replace the caliber of Davante Adams because his route running is generationally good, but some people celebrating like it dooms the Packers. It's not going to doom them.
No, but it is going to be hard to replace him.
Oh yeah, I mean it is going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. I don't think this suddenly makes the Packers just completely downfall.
Oh no. I mean, you still have Aaron Rodgers, uh, but it's going to make it tougher when he doesn't have somebody to bail him out.
Right, right.
Because that wide receiver core looks a lot different than it did a year ago.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, Randall Cobb will be back. Alan Lazard will be back.
I'm hearing rumblings that Marquez Valdes-Scantling might go back too.
I wouldn't be surprised. But I just, it's not the same.
No, it's really hard to replace Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb, and after that it gets real thin, real quick.
Yep.
So, but I'm sure that they're gonna use some of the money that they've freed up, and probably add some veterans, and I'm sure they're going to draft one in the first round.
Yeah.
Maybe one in the second round too. If you're paying Aaron Rodgers all that money.
Yeah, you want to put offensive pieces around him as best you can.
Yep. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Bears decide to operate. And my hope is, I'm not really high on any of the quarterbacks in this draft, but my big hope is that that somebody trades back up into the late first, and drafts a quarterback or two to, because teams like to do that with quarterbacks, so they get that fifth round option. You lock them up with that 5th-year option still on the rookie deal. So I'm hoping that one or two teams trades back in the first and snags quarterbacks, because that opens up things for the Bears.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Because, I mean, these are just computer simulations, but I've been doing a lot of mock Bears draft in the simulators. Now there's several sites that do it, like Pro Football Focus and On the Clock and a bunch of other sites, and they kind of do mock drafts, and you get to pick for your team. And at this point, I'm seeing a lot of quarterbacks being available when the Bears are drafting at 39, which those, they would rank the quarterbacks as the best available free agent or players available when the Bears draft, which I don't want that. I want the quarterbacks off the board at that point. Because then that every time a quarterback is drafted higher than he should be, it pushes another good player down towards the Bears picks at 39 and 48.
Right.
So, as much as people on Twitter are just like, Bears should draft this, or Bears should draft wide receiver with their first pick and offensive lineman with their second pick. I'm like, a lot of it depends on who's available. It's just because those are your top needs, that doesn't mean the draft plays out that way. If there's a huge run on wide receivers, and none of the wide receivers that are left on the board when you hit 39 are worth the 39th pick, you're not going to just be like, well, that's our biggest need, going to draft anyway. That's bad form. So you sort of need the draft to go your way a little bit. You need the people in front of you to to go a little AWOL sometimes. Like anytime the Raiders draft a random ass person that has no business being in that draft, at that point, you're like, yes, bodes well for the Bears.
Yeah, Raiders won't be drafting first now.
I know, but when they draft a kicker in the first round, or they draft
That was Sebastian Janikowski, right?
that was the Sebastian Janikowski was a first round draft pick in the same year that Tom Brady was a 6th round draft pick.
And yet both ended up pretty good at their position. Just
Absolutely.
one was slightly more important than the other.
Well, I mean, you could be the greatest kicker of all time and an above average quarterback, and the above average quarterback is going to be the more important player in relevance, because it's the more important position. So Sebastian Janikowski was a hell of a kicker, arguably one of the best kickers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But was he worth a first round draft pick? No, because he was a kicker.
He's a kicker.
He's a kicker. You can find a pretty decent kicker anywhere.
Find one at a construction site. Isn't that where the Bears found Robbie Gould?
Probably.
Because wasn't he working construction when they brought him in?
I mean, I guess you could use that same story as they found Kurt Warner at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Did you see that movie yet?
No, not yet.
It looks so bad. I'm going to have to see it, though.
Of course.
It's one of those things like, I know it's going to be so cringy, but I'm going to have to see it.
Of course.
Like when somebody sent me the trailer for that, like maybe a year or so ago, I was like, I don't get it. What's the joke? Like, this is not a funny SNL skit. I don't get it. And they're like, no, this is real. This is a real movie that's coming out. I was like, oop, did Kurt Warner fund this movie to be made?
Oh man. I gotta, because I haven't seen the trailer. I just know about it.
Oh, it looks so hokey.
Oh, I'm sure it is. A lot of those rah-rah football movies are. Not all of them. There's some great ones. Remember the Titans is legendary.
Oh no, this is no Remember the Titans.
This is no Remember the Titans.
Yeah, this is
no Blind Side, no We Are Marshall, no Rudy.
I mean, Rudy is one of my all-time favorite movies. I love Rudy. I even have
my grandpa, my dad were in the crowd at that final scene in that game.
Really?
Yeah, because they filmed it during halftime. My dad and grandpa just decided randomly, hey, let's go to a Purdue game. And then, or not a Notre Dame game. And they happened to be shooting the movie that game. So halftime happened. And yeah, they were in that crowd.
Huh. I actually have a Notre Dame football helmet signed by the real Rudy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep.
Didn't know that.
I guess he has like a charitable foundation, and if you made a donation to the foundation, he would sign an autograph for you. So I made the donation, and he signed my helmet.
Neat.
Yeah, so I was pretty excited about it. Now I want to get the same helmet signed by the Hobbit that played Rudy.
Oh, you could add to the collection. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, so one side, the real Rudy Rudiger, and the other side, Sean Astin.
Boom. That would be sweet. Then you can sell it for money.
Well, it's funny. I'm probably, if I ever have to see him, it'll probably be at like a C2E2 or some comic convention, and where everybody's there is having him like sign things from Lord of the Rings and or Stranger Things or Goonies. And I'm going to be like, Rudy, Rudy, Rudy.
All right, sir, we're going to ask you to leave.
Rudy.
Security's dragging you out by your legs, and you're still just chanting Rudy as you're leaving the room. Everyone just hears your Rudy chant slowly fade quieter and quieter as you go down the hall as it's echoing.
I just want to like follow him around the day, but not too close, but just close enough where when I see him do something, reenact a scene from the movie where I'm somebody else. Like I'm waving him into a game. Like, stay in, stay in. When I see him like walking into the building, no, stay in.
Oh, you would do that, wouldn't you?
Love that movie. I might have to watch it after tonight.
There you go. There you go.
It used to be like my movie that I'd put on, like that and Office Space, were like always the movies I could put on if I was like folding laundry or cleaning the house, or something where it was like background noise almost, that I didn't have to like pay attention to the movie because I've seen it so many times. So those were like my two go-to movies.
Hey, Peter, what's happening?
I actually had like a Office Space moment. So like I said, I went into the office for the first time in over 2 years this week, and they moved offices. So I was in a new office and I have a window seat, but there's like my cube butts up against a window, but they put a wall up to the cube. That's not like a wall that holds anything up. It's just like an additional wall that would be like a separation between my cube and somebody else's cube next to the window. I'm like, why the hell did they do this? So now I don't get the view out the window. So I'm like, I tell my boss, I'm like, I'm going to come in here like Peter and just from Office Space and unscrew then just push it down. Start cleaning fish in the office.
All right, that's great, Peter. We'll get someone to clean this up for you.
I got a meeting with the Bobs.
The Bobs. What would you say you do here?
Oh, the Bobs. Why is that movie so good?
Oh, it's so funny. So funny.
And the squirrels were married. Milton is so good.
Let them get a piece of cake, and I feel like if everyone's getting a piece of cake, and I won't get a piece of cake.
Now, Milton, you pass the cake down so everyone gets a piece. But last time I did not receive a piece.
But the cake, no more piece.
The swingline stapler doesn't bind up as much.
I love that actor. He's in so many great things.
Dodgeball.
He's Bill Dauterive in King of the Hill.
Oh, yeah, he is. King of the Hill's coming back.
Yes. King of the Hill is such an amazing show. And I'm sad that it took me so long to really appreciate how great it is. And I think that's society as a whole. Like, King of the Hill had its following, but like now the masses are realizing, hey, this is really freaking funny.
Damn it, Bobby. That's my purse. I don't know you.
I love Dale Gribble's bullshit. Like, did you ever see the episode where Dale's working in an office and they ask him to fire people? And she's like, Mr. Gribble, how would you like to make this your permanent job? Firing Gladstone? Sure. Gladstone!
Oh.
I actually bought his Mac hat, his orange Mac trucker hat.
So I'm looking, is the guy that was Milton. He also played Cringer and Battle Cat in the new He-Man series.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's cool. God, his IMDb is huge.
He's been in a lot of stuff. He's perfect as a supporting actor. Perfect.
I'm just looking at his IMDb, and he was in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot as Cockmando voices.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, God, just so many IMDb entries. Yeah. I don't even know how we got on this, but going back to, I guess, to the Bears, it's going to be interesting to see, this next month and a week is going to be really interesting because I'm kind of looking at the free agents and offensive line. Teron Armstead is still available. I don't see him as anybody that's the Bears would even be interested in. Is injury prone, expensive, and on the wrong side of 30. Dwayne Brown, Eric Fisher, Trent Brown, Riley Reif. Nobody really. Lael Collins is now gone. Bengals signed him. So nobody really exciting as far as offensive linemen. Cornerbacks, Stephon Gilmore is available. Steven Nelson. And then after that, like arguably the third best cornerback that's available would be Bryce Callahan.
Yeah.
Janoris Jenkins, Patrick Peterson, Joe Hayden. I mean, 5 years ago, that would have been an awesome list.
Sure, absolutely.
The wide receiver list is pretty bogus now. I would say of defensive linemen, Akeem Hicks is probably the best available free agent defensive lineman on the market.
Do you think it's possible that he comes back if he accepts a really small deal?
Absolutely. I mean, Allen Robinson decided to go to the Rams.
Yep.
And what's funny is he actually took less money than what reportedly the Bears offered him.
Yeah, well, I think he was just done with here.
And that's one of those situations is where you cut off your nose to spite your face. And I guess, the Rams have a much better possibility of winning the Super Bowl because they're the defending Super Bowl champions.
I was going to say, you're going to a win now team.
Yeah. So I guess, you're going, who your quarterback is going to be because he just signed an extension. So I mean, if that's, I guess that sort of makes sense, but, the market was definitely not what he thought it was going to be for his services.
Oh, absolutely. And you kind of had a feeling that was going to happen after a while.
It's funny. This wide receiver group is you had players that were just way overpaid and then the market sort of corrected itself.
Yep.
And that was a sigh of fresh air because I was like, man, our wide receiver is going to start being 20 to 25 million. And the market recorrected itself right away. I think a few teams were bidding against themselves in for some of these players. Like Christian Kirk got paid way more than he deserved, and a few other guys did too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The linebacking list, like Bobby Wagner is still available. And while I would love to see Bobby Wagner and Roquan Smith playing on the same wide receiver or linebacker core, I don't see that happening.
I don't see it either.
Dante Hightower, Anthony Barr, Nick Kwiatkowski, those are sort of the best names out there. Safety, Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger is still available. Jaron Curse, Kareem Jackson, those are sort of your top safeties. And then, JC Treader is a name. I still would like to see them sign JC Treader. You look at his PFF grades over the last few years, they're really good. And I don't think he's going to cost an arm and a leg. I want to say he's like 31. He's a little older than you want, but centers can play to 35, 36, 37 years old. So it's not like wide receiver or running back. I would love to see them sign a JC Treader. Then you can kick Lucas Patrick over to guard, and then suddenly your offensive line is taking way more of a shape than expected. then anybody else you add is kind of gravy, because then you would have your starting lineup going into the draft as JC Treader at center, your guards as Whitey Coathair and Lucas Patrick, and then you pencil in your tackles as Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum. And could you upgrade anywhere along that line? Yes, absolutely. But if you don't have the pieces fall your way in the draft, as to where you can draft somebody high that you can plug right in, then it's not the end of the world. You have your starters.
Right.
So that's why I would love to see them sign a JC Treader, because you're not going to find a better center at this point in free agency by a long stretch. And I'm not seeing, any sort of news on him, which is a little surprising.
No, I haven't either.
Unless I've missed something.
I also haven't looked recently, so I can't say that I've seen any, but
nope, he's still available. And he's also a character guy. He was the president of the NFL Players Association. Smart guy, went to an Ivy League school. Was a big locker room character guy. I would love for him to find his way to the Bears.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having him either. That would be a nice get.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, here we are with the Bears.
Just counting down the days to the draft.
Yep. But I do think we will see some more movement from the Bears. I mean, it's been pretty,
yeah, absolutely.
Because we really do have a roster that needs to be filled out here.
With NFL talent.
With NFL talent. Like I said, it's exciting with that the Bears will have so much opportunity for undrafted rookies to make this roster and have playing time. You also cannot rely on undrafted rookies to make the roster and compete for playing time and be competitive. That is when I say that's exciting, it'll be nice because the guys will have opportunity, not be forced into service because there's nobody else. This isn't a World War II where we're drafting everybody that's able to fight, or Vietnam where we're drafting everybody available to fight because there's nobody else. This is an opportunity, because we don't have a ton of talent on this team to showcase what you have. And hopefully that means a lot of these undrafted, because what happens is, the better of the undrafted rookie players, you sort of have to recruit them, and they look at the spots where they're like, hey, listen, I know it's easy to cut me because you didn't invest a draft pick in me. So you go to teams that are more likely to need your services. So, if you're a wide receiver, undrafted rookie, you're not going to go to a team that it's pretty stacked at wide receiver, because you're less likely to make a team. You're going to try to find a team that has an opening at wide receiver where they need more help. With the Bears, you're probably going to be able to recruit a lot of these guys because you do have a lot of holes that you need to fill.
Absolutely.
It makes preseason a whole lot more fun because there are a lot of guys competing for spots that could, the bubble of players that could make the roster is pretty big.
Yeah, it is.
Should probably move to baseball here.
Yeah, plenty to talk about there. We got spring training. We got some moves. got lack of moves as well.
Yeah. I feel like pretty much on every front, you could just put either a Bears hat or a Cubs hat or a White Sox hat or a Blackhawks hat on the meme where it has a guy poking something that's dead and be like, do something.
Well, I know a lot of people are frustrated about where the Cubs are going to be this year. And I understand that they're not going to be that good. And I understand that probably should have been a few more moves on offense. I would have loved Carlos Correa. I would have liked Trevor Story. I could have taken a Michael Conforto, even though he technically hasn't signed somewhere. You didn't get that. But the Cubs have been active. They made a big move, and they've made a ton of smaller moves. And some of the smaller moves are not bad moves by any means. They're not going to make your team a World Series contender or even a playoff contender, but they're solid moves. I mean, you look at the ones like, we'll obviously get to the big one, but, bringing in Jonathan VR, that on the surface is a solid move. Bringing in David Robertson, I think that's a sneaky good move, because if you look at what David Robertson did after coming back from injury last year in a small sample size, the velocity didn't drop drastically. I mean, he was never a 98, 99 guy, but, he throws a sinker, curveball, slider with good movement. And, if he's fully healthy and he can throw what he's been doing, you might have a pretty valuable bullpen piece right there. They brought in some other moves in terms of reliever. They've stocked up on some arms there. You brought back Drew Smiley. I'm not saying all these moves are great, but you're filling out your pitching depth a little bit, which, is nice. But, again, fans are still disappointed they didn't get the big fish in Carlos Correa. With that said, Carlos Correa's contract for the Cubs would not have made much sense. If Carlos Correa was going to come to the Cubs, it was either going to be what he got with the Twins, which was basically a 1-year deal with opt-outs, or he was going to get a 10-plus year deal. You don't want to commit 10-plus years, and it makes no sense for the Cubs in a transition phase to sign basically a 1-year deal that's going to have a bunch of opt-outs. It just doesn't make sense for them.
And if he has a good year, he's going to opt out.
Of course. Look at Nick Castellanos.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's the scary part about the opt-outs is if they play great, they're opting out. And if they play terribly, they're never going to opt out. Cough, certain Cubs player, cough, because they know they're not going to get that money elsewhere. And so the only way they're keeping that, the only way that they're opting in is if they stink.
Right. Now with Correa, he's probably not going to stink.
No, it'll be if he opts back, it'll be because he got injured.
Right. Or maybe the Twins do something and he wants to stay there. You never know. But if he performs well and the Twins are mad, which is, I think, going to be the case, yeah, he's opting out. He's going to get that money. He's absolutely going to get that money.
And I saw the writing on the wall. When you saw some of the Cubs signings with Simmons and Jonathan VR, you're like, okay, we've got a lot of infielders here. I'm not seeing, are any of them the stature and caliber of Carlos Correa? Absolutely not. But they're also a lot cheaper, and there's a lot of them. So what are you doing for playing time if you do sign a Carlos Correa?
It's the Bears tight end situation from a few years ago.
Yes. Where you don't have a good one, but you have a lot of them.
And you're still trying to figure out what Nico Horner is. And look, this is what I said on Twitter earlier today. They're in a transition phase. Okay, that's the reality. Whether we like it or not, they're in a transition phase. Then you got to make sure you get as much playing time as possible for any of the young potential bats. I want to see Alfonso Rivas, see Michael Hermosillo. I want to see Nico Horner. I want to see, who's another guy who's probably going to make the roster? Because Brennan Davis isn't going to be there quite yet at the beginning of the season. But you get my point.
Absolutely. My point. I mean, the same thing with pitching staff.
Yeah.
I want to see as many innings as possible from the young guys.
Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson. When Caleb Killian comes up, maybe Jordan Wicks, but that's a little more down the road. Baseball, I would rather lose with my future players, getting them experience than be mediocre, like or sub-mediocre with a bunch of players that are going to be gone in a year or two. Like, I don't want regular at-bats for Jason Hayward or Andrelton Simmons. There's no point.
Yeah. Zero. I don't want regular at-bats for them. The way this is played out, I mean, if you're healthy, I mean, dream scenario is probably Ian Happ, Brendan Davis, and Sai Suzuki as your outfield.
For now, I mean, down the road more, you're going to hope it's going to be Davis, Suzuki, Pete Crow, Armstrong.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about
for the time being, yes.
I'm talking this season.
You're right.
Yeah. And so that means, you're probably, I would much rather see Nico Horner playing short, with Madrigal playing second, because I want to see more from Nico Horner. Andrelton Simmons, I don't care. Like, sure. Is he fine piece off the bench? Absolutely. But I just don't care enough for him to get regular at bats. And I don't want to see I don't want to see any at bats from Jason Hayward. I don't want to see that 220 batting average with him grounding out to, the 6 people they put between first and second base because he can't hit to the opposite field.
I was thinking about this too with the outfield. Ian Happ is probably going to start DHing because you heard that he had the elbow surgery.
I did not.
He did. He had elbow surgery. He's obviously in camp, but he had the elbow surgery and he's probably going to spend some time DHing. So if that's the case, then you have Suzuki and you have Clint Frazier out there. Give Clint Frazier some time. You see what he can do. I mean, to start the season, Hermosillo, you give him some time, sure. You might see Jason Hayward in center, but I would just give as much time to the young guys as possible. Heck, try Nico Horner out in the outfield. If you, because, that was a thing. People were talking about, could he be an outfielder? He's played some outfield. So if you want to try him out in the outfield and let Simmons take a few days at shortstop, as long as Nico Horner's getting in there, fine. I feel like with where you're at, that not only is Jason Hayward not going to really bring you much offensively in a season that doesn't really mean much, it's not like you're going to be trying to build up his trade value. Unless he goes absolutely off, which I don't envision that happening, who's going to trade for that? What would happen is the Cubs would basically just dump him somewhere. And maybe that does happen. I mean, couldn't they just go to Oakland and say, hey, have Jason Hayward, we'll pay for all of it. You don't have to give us anything. Just put him on your roster so we have another open spot. Couldn't they do that?
Can't you just buy him out?
I mean, you could. It's a lot of money to eat, but either way, you're going to be eating money. No matter what you do with Hayward, you're going to be eating money.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would rather just, I don't know. I would absolutely rather see more at-bats from Michael Hermosillo.
And Hermosillo and Clint Frazier might not be much, but now it's the time for you to see if they are.
I would rather see at bats from Rafael Ortega, and he is not young.
Forgetting about him,
and he is not a future piece on your team. But I would much rather see at bats from Rafael Ortega than Jason
He could be
Hayward.
your center fielder to start. If you put Rafael Ortega in center, Hap at DH, then your corner could be Frazier and Suzuki.
Right. And
to make this clear, I have no ill personal feelings towards Jason Hayward, but the fact of the matter is he's getting paid a lot of money. He's not contributing defensively, and you're not contending. If this team was contending, you say, you know what? He's matchups, pinch hit against certain guys, and late defense. Fine, whatever. Now, it's just a taken roster spot with a lot of money.
Right.
You're not contending this year.
Absolutely. Jason Hayward as a person seems like he's a fantastic guy. This is not a slander, or, this is not us taking swipes. It's just, we're looking what's best for the team and looking what's best for fans that are trying to watch this team that's not going to be good, and what's best for us as well. Like, do I want to see these at-bats? I know what Jason Hayward is. Jason Hayward is on the end of his career. And once this contract is done, once this contract is done, will Jason Hayward get another major league contract, or will it be a minor league contract with an MLB, with a spring training invite?
Yeah, I don't know. I think at most you'll see a 1-year deal from some rebuilding team just to fill a space. But yeah, he's not going to get a multi-year expensive deal again. That's not happening.
Yeah. He's going to get a Matt Carpenter deal.
Right. Exactly. But, you look at the whole situation the Cubs are in right now, and you look at what their lineup looks to be. And, it's not going to be very good, but I think you can consider this year a win if you look at the current roster now and you say, hey, we're comfortable with these list of guys going forward. You like what you see from Alfonso Rivas. Maybe, just maybe, Clint Frazier finds the fountain of youth again and a change of scenery does him good. You see good, solid progression from Nico Horner. Nick Madrigal finally gets that first full year that he's needed in the major leagues. Maybe Frank Schwindel is something. Maybe he is. If you can just identify what you want moving forward, I think at this point it's a win. There was a point this offseason I hoped they'd make the moves where they could at least be competitive. And I don't think that's going to be the case. No matter what, the 2022 Cubs were going to be a transition year. I was just hoping that the transition year might have a few more building blocks and that maybe they could be at least a bit more competitive, but we're probably not going to see very competitive. But we have to talk about the big shiny move they made, because there is some potential fun in that.
Yeah, Sai Suzuki.
Didn't think they were going to get him. There were, 12 teams in on him? And yet at multiple times, you heard rumors about him being strongly linked to another team, whether it was the Red Sox, whether it was the Padres. But at the end of the day, Nick Madrigal's stick figures got him here.
I love that. But yeah, I'm excited for him, and I'm excited to watch Brennan Davis and Sai Suzuki just hit bombs.
If those two end up being what they're cracked out to be, boy, you got a power hitting outfield. Because if you haven't watched Sai Suzuki yet, look at the highlights. He hits some titanic blasts. He has such a well-balanced swing. And this is a guy that he's not just a home run hitter. He hits for average. He consistently gets on base at a 400 plus clip, and he's well above 500 in slugging. And Jed Hoyer made that very clear at the very beginning, that one of the main reasons that he's liked watching him over all these years is because he's been so consistent.
Is the thing is, watch his swing. I mean, typically you look at lefty swings as being the beautiful swings. Sai Suzuki has a beautiful right-handed swing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really nice swing. And, you know, even guys that are good batters that are righties, they don't have beautiful swings. And he's just got a really nice swing. And, you know, you watch, and I think it's going to translate pretty well to major leagues.
Yeah, and there still might be an adjustment time with velocity, but you know, I don't have any worries that his swing isn't going to look good in the majors. He's got the swing to do it. It's just you might have to make some adjustments on the timing with some of the pitches and some of the movement of the pitches, but you know, that'll come with time. And you know, it's an exciting add to this team because you have something that is going to be around for the long run. It's not like you signed Sai Suzuki to like a 2 or 3 year deal. It's going to be a 5-year deal. So he's going to be here for the long term. And hopefully when that transition is through and they have the next good team, he's going to be a part of that, just like he's a part of this team. I also feel like, looking at Sai Suzuki, that we can't fail to mention that he's got some plus attributes as a defender in the outfield too. So that's nice to have.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking at an outfield is Sai Suzuki, everyday outfielder. You know, with Ian Happ surgery, probably not going to see him in the outfield as much, but I would like to see more playing time with Greg Deichmann, Clint Frazier, Michael Hermosillo, and Ortega. And that's who I want to see. The infield, with what we have, I just want to see a whole season with Patrick Wisdom. I want to see Frank Schwindel at first.
Nick Madrigal is the one I want to see the most.
Nick Madrigal, Nico Horner. That's the infield. I mean, out of our options here, that's the infield I want, is Wisdom, Horner, Madrigal, Schwindel. And
VR too, because VR's the kind of guy where, yeah, he's a veteran, but you know what? He plays well. Then you're looking at decent trade bait right there.
I guess, but I don't want to take at bats away from anybody else to see if we can pick up, I don't know, a low level prospect for him, you know? Like,
well, look at it this way. Look at it this way. Patrick Wisdom, I love that dude's power swing, but I think it's kind of obvious he's not going to be an everyday player.
I mean, if he bottoms out like he sort of did at the end of the season, then, you know, I'm fine with VR getting at bats, but I would much rather see what we have with Patrick Wisdom, because he's not old, but he's not young. And, you know, I want to give him as much. I mean, they're right around the same age.
I mean, we know who VR is.
We know who VR is. We don't quite know who Patrick Wisdom is, because we've seen the dog shit Patrick Wisdom, and then we've seen just the insane power he has.
And you know what? If that's what he ends up being, just a dude that either strikes out or hits at 500 feet, if you make him a bench depth guy, fine.
Right. But I want to see if he's more than we know. He has the power. Like, that's not fluky. Like, the guy can hit home runs.
Right.
It's can he consistently hit home runs, and at the pace that he was hitting them at? That's the thing we need to know, because if he is that guy that first half of the season last year, then, you know, you want him playing all the time. But if he's not, he's going to be the guy that's low average, strikes out a lot.
I see more of a platoon.
Then yeah, but I just want to see the first crack.
Sure. I get it.
You know, maybe Frank Schwindel is not the long-term answer either. but that's what I want to see right now, because this is a youth movement, and I want to see who these guys are before, we end up replacing them.
Right. Right.
Like, we want to see, hey, is this guy any good? If so, are we going to try to run him out the door for somebody in the minors, or are we going to sign him to extend, or do we want to sign him to extension and then trade somebody from the minors that is backlogged? But these are the only interesting guys that I'm seeing. Don't really have much option at catcher. It's Gomes
Wilson Contreras and Yan Gomes are going to be your guys.
Yeah.
And then PJ Higgins is going to be your backup in AAA.
And I keep hearing that maybe the Cubs move Wilson Contreras because there's been no talks about an extension. And I'm a little bit surprised, because do you feel that you can afford to move on from Wilson Contreras at this point?
I don't. I think you need to extend him, because with Wilson Contreras, with the DH now, and he has played other positions before, you can have that bat in the lineup all the time, but you don't need him to catch every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, your catching depth in your minor league system is not really bueno.
No, the Miguel Amaya injury was really tough.
It's tough, and it's not like we saw a ton from him to make me feel warm and fuzzy going forward. And then after that, was it probably Pablo Aliendo? Like, your depth of catcher is not very good. So
just bring the 9 guys they had last year. I know. I think Robinson Chirino signed somewhere, but bring Jose Lobaton back. Just have a body or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's like you really do need Wilson Contreras.
Yeah.
I
don't know why they can't just extend him. This is one guy we're talking about.
Right.
Why is it so difficult?
But to be fair to Jed Hoyer, is based on the reports of what the contracts that they offered some of their former star players, some of those star players may have been much better off signing with the Cubs than with those first offers than going to free agency.
Of course.
I mean, Anthony Rizzo cost himself a lot of money.
2-year deal.
Like, the Cubs offered him more. And Anthony Rizzo thought he was worth a lot more than he really was in the open market.
Hey, props to Chris Bryant for getting money, but he's got to play with the Rockies.
And that, I mean, maybe his hope is that he's going to be able to crush the ball in Colorado and then find his way out.
Oh, yeah. Those inflated numbers in Colorado are going to do him some good.
But good for him. But, it sounds like the Cubs may have offered him more than that at some point. Anthony Rizzo, they definitely offered more money than that. And he just, and he cost himself a lot of money by not re-signing. The thing that these players don't realize is, did Anthony Rizzo give a team-friendly deal to the Cubs on his previous contract?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. But you can't go back and recoup from that. You can't be like, I'm going to give a team-friendly deal, and then on my next contract, I'm going to force them to pay me. It doesn't work like that. You had that opportunity, and in sports, you don't get a lot of opportunities for 3 contracts. And, that he signed through his, the peak of his prime with that team friendly deal. this is not a time period where he's just going to, people are going to pay him for past performance. They're paying him for future expectations.
Right.
And so I think his agent should have told him, like, hey, listen, this is actually probably realistically a good deal.
Well, he bet on himself.
And then starters for the Cubs. We won't see Adbert Alzolay for a while.
Oh, that sucks.
Stroman, excited about Stroman.
Oh yeah, that two-seamer looking pretty good so far in spring training.
So, we'll see Stroman,
Hendricks, Miley.
Yes.
Wade Miley,
maybe Drew Smiley.
Miley and Smiley.
Rather
see Justin Steele and have Smiley as a long reliever / spot starter.
Yeah, I would much rather have Justin Steele too. Maybe a Keegan Thompson in there.
Sure.
Alec Mills, maybe.
I think Alec Mills is going to be in your rotation to start the year.
Probably. Do we get a Braylon Marquez somewhere in there?
He needs some time, I think, to get back in AAA before that's an option. And honestly, I think Braylon Marquez is a reliever. I don't think he's going to be making many starts in the majors.
It's a bummer. It may be true, but the expectations were, I think, fairly high for him.
Well, a few years ago they were. Unfortunately, a lot of roadblocks between COVID and injuries.
So I don't know how they handled the closer role.
Maybe David Robertson.
Maybe
Rowan Wick. It was going to be Cody Hoyer, and then he had Tommy John.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
That's a real bummer.
That was a big bummer. I was kind of excited to see what we had with Cody Hoyer.
Me too.
And
might explain his struggles with the Sox last year and the drop in velocity.
So at least we have baseball back.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, the White Sox are looking good, even though I know there's frustration that they didn't get a Michael Conforto or Nick Castellanos or Chris Bryant. But
Kyle
Schwarber.
Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos playing in Philly.
Yeah.
That Phillies team might be good.
I just don't think they have enough pitching. That's the thing. They have a hell of a lineup, no doubt. But pitching and defense...
We'll see. But the White Sox, I mean, it's Michael Conforto is still available.
Yes, he is.
So that would make him a realistic option. But I just want to be realistic. Is the White Sox current team spending is the most money they've ever spent on a team.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they're, I don't know, off the top of my head, probably 20 million-ish from the luxury tax, I don't see them making any significant addition here or any possibly addition at all. I think they're probably just going in with what they got. And that's a little frustrating because, we keep talking about that they've got problems that they could throw money at, and they just don't.
Well, they spent on improvements to the bullpen, which is fine. I mean, Joe Kelly, I think, was a good move. Kendall Graveman, that could pay off well. Getting Josh Harrison to at least stabilize second base, so it's not just Leury Garcia. I mean, I think that's pretty important. But Andrew Vaughn, I think, is going to be a star hitter. I just don't necessarily want him in right field a lot. That platoon in right field, you'd like to have that stabilized. And there are some Sox fans that are wondering, is Yoelqui Cespedes the future? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I honestly don't know what Yoelqui Cespedes is going to do in the future in the majors. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But what I'm trying to say right now is your window to win is right now. You have a team that if they're healthy, I think they could win the pennant. They can go to the World Series. You want to create as much depth as possible and shore up as many things as possible, to help create buffers, because talent-wise, I think the Sox are one of the best teams in baseball. If you have healthy Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert, you're the best lineup in the American League. I truly, truly believe that. It's just you want to create as much shore up as possible when your time is now.
And per Spot Track, the White Sox have 19 million in change in luxury tax space.
Yeah, that sounds right. Sounds right.
Yeah, that was a good guess on my part.
Yeah,
so
good job.
They got room. They could add, they could have added a Nick Castellanos. They could add a Michael Conforto and still been, I guess they would have been a little tiny bit over with Nick Castellanos with that contract.
Castellanos was, I thought that was always going to be a long shot.
But I mean, he ended up with a $20 million a year salary, and that would push them over by a couple $100,000 over so minimal amount over the threshold. That's not the White Sox way. He signed a $100 million contract. The White Sox don't do that. Are the White Sox going to be good? Probably.
They're going to be good. They're going to be good. There's no way they're not going to be good unless everyone gets injured.
It's I don't know. For me, it's going to be, does that pitching hold up?
It should. I mean, the starting depth is a little worrisome, but I mean, okay, let's look at the rotation. We can look at the degrees of worry. Lucas Giolito, not worried. Lance Lynn, not worried. Could he maybe take a small step back just with age? Sure, but it's not going to be like he's going to just fall off, again, unless there's an injury, but that can happen to anyone. I think Dylan Cease is working his way up. That's good. I will say, though, I'm a little worried about Michael Kopech.
I am more worried about Dallas Keuchel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Dallas Keuchel is the one that scares me. What are you going to get out of him? Because he is ripe for a big regression.
I mean, you saw it last year.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it last year. I could see it going in either direction because last year was bad. I can see him rebounding, kind of pitching like an older John Lester did, just kind of grinding away, or it could continue to go south. I could see it go either way, but it would have been nice if the Sox had another starter in there that was more reliable, because Michael Kopech has never pitched a full starter season before. He's never made 30 plus starts. We haven't seen that. So we don't know. I mean, the stuff he has is electric. There's no question, but will he be able to stay healthy a full season? Is he going to be able to take that load? That's remained to be seen. And if he goes down, who's next in line? Reynaldo Lopez?
Yep. And you'll never get, I realize who Reynaldo Lopez is. But you're never going to get Reynaldo Lopez slander from me. But he's not in the starting rotation regularly for a team that wins a World Series.
No, he's a long reliever spot starter, I think.
Yes.
And he was good last year when he was in that role, but it was also a smaller sample size.
Yeah, and that's where he belongs.
Right. Right.
And I just, so for me, the White Sox starting rotation needs to hold up. And I think Lance Lynn, I don't think he's going to be the pitcher he was last year, but
still think he'll be pretty damn good though.
Yes. I was going to say, there's a room to take a step back and still be a very good frontline pitcher.
Sure. Sure.
Lucas Giolito is still a very good frontline pitcher. I think, like you said, Dylan Cease is going to take that step forward, be that number 3. And it's what are you going to get from Michael Kopech and what are you going to get from Dallas Keuchel? And if either one of those two or both of those two should start to fall off, then what do you do?
Score a lot of runs. And that team, I think, is going to score a shit ton of runs. I think that lineup is going to be as good as we've ever seen it this year. I really do.
That's the hope.
Luis Robert might be the most talented player I've ever seen. I'm not even joking. He's got to stay healthy. But if he's healthy, I think he's going to be one of the best players we've ever seen in the city. I'm not exaggerating.
You'll probably see this year, a lot more DH at bats for Yasmani Grandal.
Well, that gets to another concern too, because you didn't bring in a veteran catcher. Like, I love the Yan Gomes signing for the Cubs, but I thought that would have been perfect for the White Sox. Who's going to be your backup catcher? Zach Collins or Zavala, whatever his name is?
Sebi Zavala. That's your backup catcher.
Do you want to rely on them being your backup catcher? Because Yasmani Grandal is great at producing at the plate. He walks, he can slug. Offensively, he had a good year, but he is not good defensively. We've seen him in his career with the Dodgers get benched in playoff games solely because of the defense. But with a DH, you fit him in. Maybe you play him at first as well. But, you don't want him catching so many games. You want his bat in there all the time, but catching is a different story. What boggles me is that they didn't get a backup. There were plenty of backup catchers available, and most of the notable backup catchers are probably off the market by now.
Yeah, and what's crazy is they've made this bullpen. This bullpen is going to be great.
Yeah, on paper, this bullpen, I think, is the best in baseball by a long shot.
Look at the names: the Kendall Graveman, the Garrett Crochet, Aaron Bummer, Craig Kimbrell, Liam Hendricks, and then you add Joe Kelly. If Joe Kelly pitches like Joe Kelly did last year, this bullpen is going to be great.
It's going to be unstoppable.
I love Joe Kelly. I think he brings like a good clubhouse presence, a good veteran pitching presence, that attitude that he brings. I love it. Love the Joe Kelly.
I think that's probably their best move this season.
It's tough. It's tough to, argue against their starting roster, but they didn't do a super upgrade at second base. You're probably going to wind up with platooning between Lurie Garcia and Josh Harrison. Your right field, you're probably Adam Engel and Andrew Vaughn.
Mm-hmm.
And then Andrew Vaughn and picking up some in Gavin Sheets, picking up DH at bats.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like the White Sox roster, and they're probably going to run away with this division.
Yeah. I don't care about the upgrades the Twins made. They're not going to win the Central.
I just don't know if the White Sox have enough to win a World Series, because there's other teams like the Dodgers they're adding Freddie Freeman's.
Fucking Dodgers, man. God. I don't know if I should be frustrated at them or frustrated that other teams aren't doing what they're doing. But anyway, look, I think the White Sox are super talented. They got their flaws. I think if all goes right this year, they can win a World Series. I think that lineup is just deadly. Absolutely deadly. You just hope there's no injuries. It's the depth that worries me about the Sox. And you know what? You can add as the year goes on. You can do that. Could you imagine if they were able to get a Sean Manaea?
Yeah.
Like, that would be amazing to get a Sean Manaea for that team. Maybe down the road, they acquire someone via trade. I think the deadline, you're going to be buying at the deadline.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, again, it would take something beyond catastrophic for them not to run away with the AL Central. The Tigers are going to get better. The Twins are better. The Royals are better. Pretty much everyone in that division is better except Cleveland, but they're going to be nowhere near the caliber of the White Sox. That said, it's not going to be as big of a cakewalk to play some of those teams. We saw in 2020 and the beginning of last year, they stomped the Royals, the Tigers, the Twins in the dirt. I mean, they were dominant against those teams. But, in the second half last year, those teams were a bit more pesky against the White Sox, whether it was the Twins, maybe not as much the Twins, but the Tigers and the Royals gave them a tough time. And they're not going to be good enough to beat the White Sox in the division, but they're not going to be the biggest cakewalks either. So I guess what my point is the Sox really got to take those games seriously. I mean, overall, the record against the division for them was perfectly fine. But, if you sat and you watched the White Sox the last few months of the 2021 season, you saw teams like the Tigers and the Royals give them a tough time.
Right. And I'm sort of looking at their roster and their farm system rankings. And, if somebody were to go down or have a rough season or whatever, and you replace them in the starting lineup or in the starting rotation, it would be a Reynaldo Lopez first, and then probably Jimmy Lambert.
Right.
And that's a little scary. Outfield, I mean, you'll probably see some at-bats or some playing time for Yelki Cespedes at some point. Especially if you have an injury. Maybe you see a Jake Berger somewhere, but if needed, but you're right. I don't love the depth of the White Sox.
That's the biggest flaw because, again, on the surface, like the top of the White Sox roster, I think is as good as anybody. You look at the main starting lineup, you look at the top three starters, you're like, yeah, that is as good as anybody. Lynn, Giolito, Cease, and then, the starting lineup, when you got Moncada, Anderson, Robert, Jimenez, Abreu, that is a deadly lineup right there. It's just the depth is where you ask some questions.
And, the platooning at second base, do I love it? No, but is it serviceable?
Yes.
Like you could, if you're stuck playing Leury Garcia every game, but when you have a platoon and you can play matchups, you're in a much better situation. So while I don't love that they didn't address it as well as I would hope, they at least did address it in a, I guess, a satisfactory manner.
Right.
I'm getting late here. The Bulls have struggled. And
Every passing day, my hope in this season dies a little bit. I'm sure we'll talk about it more later down the road, but
yeah,
we'll see where they end up. But it's not looking good. It's really not.
no. And you know what? They have not figured out what to do when teams double team DeMar DeRozan.
No.
Other
And
players have to pick it up.
Zach LaVine is not 100%.
No, he's not. You can't sell that to me.
No, you really can't. That's all I got to say about them right now. Before we log off, though, I do have some Blackhawks thoughts that I have to get to.
Yep, but just wanted to talk quickly about that too. So go ahead.
I think Kyle Davidson deserves a medal for what he got in return for Brandon Hagel. Multiple first-round picks for Brandon Hagel, plus younger NHL guys for Brandon Hagel. That feels like a massive steal.
Yes, I would agree, especially after seeing what the Flyers got for Claude Giroux.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I recognize that, you know, people are like, oh, well, those draft picks are going to be late first rounders. Well, you know what? They're not for this year anyway. They're 2023 and 2024 first rounders.
Right.
So what's the Lightning going to look like then? Maybe they have a stinker of a year one of those years, and that pick moves up. We don't know, but it's still, you got 2 first rounders.
For Brandon Hagel. I like Brandon Hagel. Don't get me wrong, but on a contending team, he's a third or fourth liner, or a good one, but you didn't trade away. You're not trading away the next Patrick Kane at age lower 20s, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's Brandon Hagel is not a team or a player that you build a team around. And this team is rebuilding. So people
are a long way from contending.
Fans need to really look themselves in the mirror and say, am I a fan of my favorite player, or am I a fan of this team? Because, you know, you got to sort of pick sides on this one, because the trade deadline is, we're recording this on Sunday night. Probably by the time you listen to it, you're going to see moves of flying, and the trade deadline is on Monday. Fleury's probably going to be gone. And honestly, if the Blackhawks can trade anybody, they should make that move. I mean, I would dump that Seth Jones contract in a heartbeat if I could.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, absolutely.
I don't think so either, but this is a long way off from the Blackhawks being contenders, because the talent they have in Rockford, not sufficient.
No, outside Reichel, no.
Nobody on this current roster is a player that you're going to have be a key cog going forward when you're successful. I would, if you get a good deal, I would move it to DeBrincat. I would move Patrick Kane if you got a good return. If the return makes sense, you go for it, because none of these players are going to be around when it's time to be good again.
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact of the matter is that you're so far off from being anything that I can't get married to anybody on this current roster. Even if, I'm not saying I want to see Alex DeBrincat dealt, but here's the thing. 24, not old. He's not old right now. But how long is this rebuild going to be? I'm not saying they have to trade him, but you can't not listen.
Absolutely. You just, I'm not saying you give away players, but
They didn't give away Brandon Hagel, that's for sure.
Yeah, you move on from whoever it is that makes sense. If you're gonna get a haul for a player, or that player's on an expiring contract and you can get something for him, you do it. You just do it. This is the Davidson realizes this, and so far, deal one, it's already an infinitely better deal than we've seen Stan Bowman make in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like we're at the point where the rest of the season, you might be lucky to see 5 wins, like with all honesty. You might be lucky. So you're going to suck the rest of the season. Trade whatever you can. And then you go from there. I mean, there's nothing to salvage. There's been nothing to salvage since the day the season started, honestly. It's not fun to watch, but that's the reality. Do I think Kane or DeBrincat get dealt? No. And I think the reality is as much as I would love just a complete teardown, and I've said this on the show before, I'll say it again. The Wirtz family, they need some reason for the fans to come out, because if Kane and DeBrincat end up going and you have literally nobody, they know they're not the Cubs or the Bears or the Bulls. So if there's nobody on the team, there's going to be nobody in the stands.
Absolutely. Totally agree. But you sort of have to weigh this as what is best for this franchise. And it is a tough sell, especially when Blackhawk tickets are not cheap. I mean, secondhand market, the secondary market. Yeah, sure. Right now you're getting them cheap, but if you buy them face value, they're not inexpensive. It's a commitment to go to a Blackhawks game paying face value for tickets. And what reason do you have to go? Because this team is going to be bad for a while.
It is.
We don't have goaltending depth in the minors. We don't have players in the minors that are we're excited about. We don't have a first round pick this year. So it's a little bit brutal. And eventually we're going to get some more flexible financial cap space, but we just have to be able to build out a roster here, and it's going to take, I think, not only quality drafting, but I think it's going to take an upgrade in your development camp in the minors.
No, I agree.
So I don't know what other moves the Blackhawks will make tomorrow. I'm fairly certain we'll see Marc-Andre Fleury move.
Well, there was wild rumors. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw a few rumors. But I don't know how many trades they actually make outside of Marc-Andre Fleury they actually make.
Yeah, right.
Is there a market for Calvin DeHaan?
Maybe. I mean, it's not going to be strong.
Is there a market for Kubalik?
Yeah, there have been rumors about them trying to trade him. Again, nothing. I mean, Brandon Hagel has played really well. You haven't seen as much from DeHaan or Kubalik this year.
Yeah, I mean, is there a market for Ryan Carpenter, Dylan Strome, or Eric Gustafson?
Gustafson, no.
Like
Strome, yes. Gustafson, no.
I just I just don't know what moves they have here. So it's if you're the Blackhawks, everybody's got to be on the table.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, if you could get Kane and Taves to waive their no movement clauses and found a good deal, I would move on from both of them in a heartbeat.
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't think there's much to be had with Taves these days. And I got a bit of a take. This is more of a bold prediction than a take. But here's my bold prediction. And you could sit on this if you will. I think Taves is going to retire after this year.
I mean, it has to be on the table for him because he's made a lot of money. He's not the same player that he was. And he's already frustrated by this team going into rebuild mode.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons. I mean, you look at all the concussion issues. You look at where the team is. If he's not feeling 100%, he might just say, you know what, hanging it up.
And what else does he have to prove? I mean,
nothing. He's not going to play on a contender again, at least with the Blackhawks.
Yeah. So you've hoisted Lord Stanley's Cup 3 times.
Mm-hmm. You've won gold medals. You've been All-Star games.
Yep.
Nothing left.
You've made a lot of money.
Yep. So that's my prediction, is that he's going to retire after this year.
Yeah. So according to Spot Track, how much is he? Wait, where's his career earnings? He's made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. 13.8, 13.8, 13.8, 12, 9.8, 7, 6.9, 6.9. He has made a whole lot of money. Let's see. Entry level contract, 3-year, $8.4 million. And then 5-year, $31.5 million. And then his current deal, which is like 10.5 a year average. Over 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So the guy's made upwards of $100-some million. It's plenty of money. Does he want to keep playing on a losing team?
Yeah, because like you said, he doesn't seem very happy about the situation.
No, and I saw a quote from Seth Jones as well that was like, Brandon Hagel was the identity of this team. And I'm like, this team's a bad team. What kind of identity did you have?
Not a good one, that's for sure.
Yeah, like this is a bad team. And I know Seth Jones is used to playing on bad teams, but good grief.
Mm-hmm.
Get a grip.
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to see wholesale changes. And then, honestly, it's best for the Blackhawks if Taves retires. Just helps reboot this.
Yeah, it does.
But otherwise, next year is the last year of that contract anyway.
And maybe it's a case of he'll play one more year, then retire. We'll see.
maybe, because next year will be his age 34 season.
Yeah.
So he's not a spring chicken anymore. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Nope. Think I've said my piece.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. It's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, Twitter @Swerski Sports, Alex on Twitter at ShyFanPat2, and AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Dick and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing